Are we having a party here? I don't.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business. So let's jump to segment 2. And it basically says content is cash, leveraging content marketing for business success. I'm just going to let you start. There you go.
Sure, yeah. So the content side of it. So content's kind of a buzzword, and if it makes you groan, like that's totally fair. It's an overused word, but for good reason. I mean, the basic principle behind content is you are giving to get something. That's the idea. It's not, a great example of that is, have you ever landed on a web page expecting some content that you wanted to read, whether it's a timely news article, or it's a video you wanted to watch, or a white paper, some research that you felt was like really interesting, and it said, please put in your email address. You can kind of go, all right, how much do I really want this content, right? So
I have sat at more sites going, oh, geez, do I need something else to unsubscribe to as soon as
exactly.
I don't like it? Yeah.
And by the way, to that point, if you have a subscription problem, wait until the end of the segment or the next podcast, and I'm going to give you some tips on how you can easily unsubscribe in bulk to a bunch of emails, but that's for later.
Excellent.
But back to that point. So the idea is, obviously, if you have that inhibition of, I don't want to give my email address to these people, like, I don't know what they're going to do with it, there has to be 2 things. 1, there has to be a certain level of trust, and 2, it has to be valuable enough for you to want to give them that information. You don't just get it by default. No longer are people willing to sort of willy-nilly give their information up like that, right? So back to the content is cash thing, honestly, it should really be the right content for the right person is cash. So if you can establish that credibility and that trust, and you're going to spend hours, you're going to spend maybe dollars, hours of your time, and lots of effort working on creating value for people, and that comes in the form of content. Maybe you make a really informative, highly edited 1-minute video describing something that's helpful, or maybe you do some research, or maybe you do have an informative podcast like this one. You're doing the work to provide value so that your target audience sees you as someone trustworthy and someone that they might want to work with in the future is the idea.
Well, time, as you said, time's money, and for a business owner, we're at the basics here, the foundational stuff. I don't know how to make videos. I don't know what to do with this. Now we get into, who do I hire? Do I go out to Fiverr? Maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but that takes a lot of time. And speaking from experience, when I got into the consulting, just doing consulting and not running a service business 10 years ago, I was overwhelmed with the amount, the hill I had to climb, the learning curve, just to do the basics, not to be a pro. So how do they get some of that done when their time's already limited? Any suggestions there?
Yeah, one thing I would say is, have you ever posted a selfie on a social media website?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
If you have, you've done content marketing. Like that when it comes to like all the steps needed, technology's at a level now, and it's so ubiquitous with how we live our lives that there's good news here, because in the past it was like, oh, you have to make video content, you got to get all this equipment set up, you got to know the right editing software. Now everyone has a smartphone pretty much, and if you have a presence, period, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or you've emailed someone a photo one time, you've done half the battle. You have the tech already, because the technology in phones are so great now. And also, and so that's one part, and it dovetails into my second point, which is marketing is moving increasingly to a more authentic, more real space. Whereas before, you kind of hid the bad things and kind of, inflated the good things, and you try to give yourself a certain image. Buyers now, especially younger people, especially Gen Z, Gen Y, they can see through that stuff. So the more authentic and genuine you are, the more you're going to hit home, depending on who your audience is. So the excuse is no longer, oh, well, my selfie video isn't very professional. People don't care about professional. They care about value and what's helpful for them. So if you're able to point a camera at yourself, that's half the battle, and you can get very far by just doing that.
So real quick question, self-serving. So when you're in my age group, it just goes against my grain to put something out with if, ands, buts, the camera shaking or whatever. To
Hmm.
what? How raw a piece of content can you get out there? As raw as it needs to be if it's the right message? I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
What's really funny about that, Mark, is so my wife's been posting a lot of TikTok content lately for a brand that we're working with. And she intentionally, get this, she intentionally adds in ums and uhs
Oh no.
because people think it's more off the cuff, people think it's more genuine. If it comes across as too polished, now again, this is for the younger TikTok audience, so
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily fit every audience profile, but this is certainly the trend. People want to detect that you're speaking from the heart. They feel it's scripted, they feel it's overly professional or polished. There's a time and place for that content, but if you're trying to offer something in a certain way, actually more off the cuff and a little bit less put together is actually preferable.
Yeah, for our audience, I would say primarily they do use Instagram, some use TikTok, but I would say it's LinkedIn and Facebook are the two big drivers where they're trying to reach, people that are buying cleaning services or facility solution services, those sorts of things.
Hmm.
So when we're aiming at that, do you still have the same rules go? Because our the buyers are probably today in their that are buying services in their, I would say, 30s to 50s range.
Okay, so
So
probably
what's
like
their
Gen Y,
tolerance?
Gen X,
Yep,
probably.
Gen Y, Gen X, yeah.
Yeah, I would say pay attention to the viral posts on those platforms, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and tell
Okay.
me, look at 20 of them and do a percentage calculus of how much of them seem overly edited and cleaned up, buttoned up, scripted versus the ones that seem kind of off the cuff. They're like a weird cropped video, a vertical video with text on the top, and it's like very thrown together looking. And which ones perform the best to your audience? It's all about the audience, and if you can learn some things from some competitors, then go that route.
So the old watch what the competitors are doing.
Oh yeah, always do that.
Yeah. I'm not picking on any of our audience, so I hope nobody feels this way. But it's a service business industry, so we really have no product. Usually, the ask is a small contract might be a couple thousand a month. A large one might be 10 or 15,000, where you start getting into. So there, I'll take some things I've seen on LinkedIn. I'm just curious, and they give you the old before and after shot. Okay,
Right.
this is what it looked like before. Now that's all good and well, but honestly, is that really? I'm going to go back to your first point. Is that really what your target audience wants to see? Isn't that just kind of a guess that you've got this kind of mess and we can put it in this condition? I mean, is that kind of shooting bullets out in the dark at no target?
Right. It's an assumption to say, here's what we're proud of. We're going to display what we're proud of. And there's something to be said for that. But the
Yeah.
question really should be, let's take this case study, let's take this before or after. How can we package it into something that our audience would care about, right? It could even be
Okay.
the same before and after, except you include the client. And they're saying, yeah, this is my mess. I hope you can fix it. And then you interview them like, well, they fixed it. And this is awesome. Like maybe that minute difference of a testimony could make or break it. So like, for example, a younger person might look at that video and say, yeah, that before footage looks really bad. I'm sure they went to the worst possible space in the worst possible spot. And I'm sure for the after shot, they cleaned it up extra, that corner that they captured. That's like the sort of skepticism. So if you can add a layer of credibility, whether it's, again, through another testimony or whatever, anything you can do to make it seem more real and less prescripted and less like, what's the word? Like, fake, I guess.
Yep.
That would go a long way.
Because that's a lot of what the smaller businesses will do, and we'll discuss it with them. Well, what do you expect? Unless my floor is filthy and now it's clean, I'm not interested in talking to you.
Right.
So you're assuming there that this is the problem. Now it's all cool you're doing it, and so you're suggesting either attach a testimonial or maybe a short story underneath it.
Hmm.
They couldn't find anybody else to do this or something behind that story in the explanation portion of the post.
Right, and that could make or break it, right? Because you're trying to convince the person that whatever content you're putting out there, whatever your strategy is, it's real and it's helpful to them. And if there's any level of skepticism, then they have a lower chance of buying from you.
So they're bigger skeptics and not as big as suckers as the baby boomers. I'll throw myself in there.
I
Okay.
think that's accurate. People are getting more, what's the word? More discerning about their purchasing decisions.
Well, I
They
was
have
going to
more,
go callous.
or callous too. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
It's just, I think a lot of the marketing since the whole digital thing has really hit, when Facebook came out, has caused a lot of that. People have lost a lot of money, gotten zero to no results, and they're just skeptical and callous about a lot of the stuff.
yeah, it's fair.
And my accounting professor said, paper doesn't refuse ink. Well, social media doesn't refuse words or video or content. So
Yeah, there's no shortage.